Hello everyone and welcome to Lockdown with Max. Hope you're all keeping well and staying safe during these difficult times. Hopefully this will only be a temporary series on the channel and I will be back pitch side whenever possible. I've got some great guests lined up to kick things off, so keep an eye out for the content on the channel. Stay safe. Hello everybody and welcome to Lockdown with Max. Today's guest is the amazing Michelle Owen. Michelle is a football reporter and presenter who appears on your TV screens most weekends for Gillette Soccer Saturday Live on Sky Sports. Not at the minute though, of course. She's also presents on Sky Sports News, Radio 5 Live and is a podcaster for Bristol City Live. I've had the pleasure of interviewing and meeting Michelle down at the City Ground several times, and I'm always impressed with Michelle's in-depth knowledge of all things football and her passion for the game. Afternoon, Michelle. First of all, how are you? How are you coping with lockdown?
Yeah, afternoon, Max. Yeah, all good, really. We have a little boy, so it's just all go. He never stops, all night and all day, because he doesn't sleep. But yeah, we're fine. You know, like everyone, it is what it is. Be looking forward to seeing everyone, our friends and family again, and of course, getting back to the football when we can.
Yeah, great. I mean, you just mentioned you recently had a little boy. Congratulations on that. I'm guessing you were planning on returning to work sometime, so is it a bit frustrating that now all the coronavirus and the lockdown has stopped it, but are you glad that you get to spend more time with your little boy?
Yeah, I was due. My first game back was the day after football was stopped. So when Mikel Arteta and Callum Hudson-Odoi all that week, all that was happening, and everyone was like, well, surely football can't go ahead this weekend. And I was sat at home thinking, actually, I don't want it to go ahead. I don't feel safe going. And I was thinking, are they going to stop it or not? And then obviously the Premier League and the EFL decided to stop it. We didn't know how long for at that point. So yeah, I was due back that weekend. So I'm gutted, but it was obviously for the right reasons. But yeah, it's nice to have more time with Zach. I was looking forward to getting that, I guess, that bit of my identity back, because I'd had 5 months at that point and I was just sort of ready to come back sort of part-time. And because he's 6 months old now. So I'm really looking forward to getting back to it. That's not to say I'm not enjoying spending all my time with him, but it's nice to have a little break every now and then, as I'm sure every parent will know.
Just like you mentioned as well, the impact on football has been massive. What do you think should happen in terms of, should it be played behind closed doors, the season called void? From a Forest fan point of view, it'd obviously be really disappointing if they called the season void, because we're still fighting for the playoffs and promotion. How can you see it being resolved? What do you think should happen?
Honestly, I don't know, because I think it's just so early to say at the moment, like, about what's happening with the science behind the virus and things like that. We still don't know what the best course of action is. We're still in lockdown. But I know a lot of fans have said, no, I don't want to see it played behind closed doors. But I think that's better than nothing, personally. Like, I understand why fans are saying that, because, you know, your diehard fans that go to games week in, week out, they want to go to the game, they want to go through the turnstile, they want to be there at 3:00 for their team. Yeah. And let's be straight, like, it's not going to be the same if it's played behind closed doors. But it's a better alternative to nothing at all. For me, you cannot void the season. Why would you void the season when it's, would you say, 80% done and start a new season? I don't really get that trail of thought. So I'm hoping they can complete it. I think it would be desperately unfair on Liverpool if they didn't. And I really think, like, you've got to question the integrity of the game if they did void it. You know, what's the point if you can sort of just wipe it all off? There is the issue of player contracts, but I think FIFA and UEFA have talked about contract extensions. It's going to knock on everything. We don't know when we'll start next season, but I don't think you can think about next season, whenever that is, until you finish this season. So I think you have to finish the domestic leagues. But, you know, we have to wait, and it's frustrating for every football fan and every person that loves working in football and everyone else. But while, you know, emergency services are needed elsewhere, while it's not safe to, we just got to wait, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think for the right reasons, like you said, playing it behind closed doors is a better option, of course. Yeah. You know, but for teams that have never gone to Wembley before, or will go to the playoff final, will have, for example, the FA Cup final, you know, those fans will miss out on that opportunity. I think it's just such a difficult topic, and I just don't think anyone knows really the answers yet. No. And of course, the EFL and the Premier League will keep kind of postponing it further and releasing statements, but I just think we kind of don't know what's going to happen at the moment.
Yeah, I don't believe there's really one person in this country that knows what's going to happen, not just about football, but overall. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's plans afoot, because you can't live in lockdown forever, can you? But it's just such an impossible situation, and none of us, like no one alive today, has ever faced that. So that's why no one really, if we're honest, knows what to do. So we just got to be hopefully guided by those in the know to an extent.
I mean, taking away the subject from lockdown now, and I want to focus on your job in kind of sport, Michelle, and talk about how you got to where you are now. How did it all start with becoming a football reporter? Did you kind of start somewhere different? Tell me how it started right from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try and cut a long story short. If not, it'll be here all day. But so when I was sort of 15, 16, I started going to my local newspaper and little local radio station in the middle of Wales, the middle of nowhere. And then when I went to university, I did student radio, hospital radio, community radio. And really more than my path was radio presenting. Mm-hmm. But while I was doing this, in the back of my mind was like, well, I love football, I love sport. So I volunteered a lot and did a lot of work experience all through university and did lots of placements. And one placement I did was with Sky. And I think that was when I was 20. And I did that placement and just got a few details and contacts and things and just sort of put them, to one side as you do, because I had nothing else to give or offer or ask at that point. And then when I was 21, just as I was graduating, I was really lucky I got a job in radio. And so it was a local radio group in South Wales. And they had like a group of stations, and I started doing the Saturday sports show on one of them for a few months. I was really enjoying that, and I thought, oh, do I like this more than I like doing music radio? Because I was doing music radio. I used to present on Enemy Radio was one of them before it was closed down. So I was like, oh, okay, do I like the sport more? And then we had a show called Football Nation on one of them, and I kept saying, if someone's off, can I present it? Can I have a go at presenting? Because I love football, watch the football all weekend and play FIFA on the PlayStation with my other half. And, I've been going to football or playing football since I was 3 or 4. So, absolutely loved football. And I'd always wanted to be a sports broadcaster and sports journalist. And I started doing the music radio and not got sidetracked because I was loving it, but it was always there. So they had this show called Football Nation. They're like, oh, you can't present it at the moment, but you can go out and do match reports for us. So go to the Swansea game, go to the Cardiff game, come back and do a match report for us, file like a minute or whatever. Go to the post-match press conference and ask managers questions. So that's how that started. And then after a couple of years of having that all in the bag and working for different radio stations, I worked for Capital for a while. I did drive there. It came to the point where I was like, oh, I need to pursue this further. I want to do something more. So before I was at Capital, I was sort of pushing for that, thinking, what can I do? And I had, like you do probably, like this pile of material of match reports and post-match presses. Yeah. So I got back in touch with my contacts at Sky and sort of said, look, I've been doing this for a few years, been presenting for this long. And I was just really, really lucky in that it was probably right place, right time, asked the right question on the right day. And they said, okay, we'll give you a chance on Soccer Saturday, but next season. I was like, oh, okay, got to wait till next season. Okay. And I started on Soccer Saturday, I think 6 years ago. And I started on the ISDM reports.
Yeah.
And while I was doing those, I was at Capital presenting Drive. So I did Monday to Friday on Capital, a Saturday on Soccer Saturday, and a Sunday presenting on Capital. So it's a 7-day week. And I was thinking, I'm kind of enjoying like the football and the sport more than the radio now. I'm getting a little bit bored of it. Yeah, amazing job, don't get me wrong. But you just know, don't you, sometimes?
Yeah.
And then Soccer Saturday said, okay, do you want to have a go at doing it on camera? Because we like your RSDM reports. And that's when I went in Vision, probably about 5 years ago now. And everything sort of snowballed from there, really. Then Sky Sports News were like, oh, do you want to do some stuff for us? We'd like you to do some things for us. And then from there, I was so busy with Sky asking me to do things. It's like, I need to make a choice because there's Tuesday night games. But on Tuesday night, I should be presenting on Capital. And to be fair, Capital were like really good. They're like, okay, you can go and do that. But I was probably taking the mick a little bit when it was like 5 Tuesdays in a row, and I was off my show.
Fantastic.
So my contract was coming to an end, and I was like, okay, I think this is the perfect time. And that's when I switched over to sports broadcasting full time and built everything up with Sky. And in the end, long story short, I started presenting the sport bulletins on Sky News. So I do a game on a Saturday. I get home from somewhere like Plymouth Argyle like 8, 9 o'clock, go to bed, get up at 2 a.m. and drive to London to present Sunrise. So yeah, you know what it's like, you do these things and you sort of just get on with it. And it all snowballs, you know. When you're right place, right time, it's very, very lucky as well. But I think if you've got a passion for something and you've got some knowledge, then hopefully things do go your way.
Do you think that your own passion for football and for sport in general helped you kind of make that decision over doing music radio, like you mentioned just then? Do you think that kind of your own passion really helped you make that decision and kind of follow the football journalism and presenting career further?
The thing was, every time I went to a game, it was like such a buzz. So like, obviously I used to go as a fan and used to go to matches, and I went to my first game when I think I was 6, and my uncle took me. Didn't get to go much because my family like literally aren't into football at all. Like they don't like it, they don't watch it, they don't have Sky, they don't listen to it.
Really?
They don't support anyone. But I just grew up and I loved it and started playing in things, and it was always there. And I played really until I got pregnant with Zach. And when I used to go and do the games on a Saturday, I was like, like I love this. Like I proper love it. Like it's that buzz that you get from being at a match. I was like, there's nothing compares to it. Like you go and you don't know what's going to happen. I can walk into a radio studio and okay, like you don't know what news is going to happen during that day and things, but you know, more or less when you present a drive time show 4 till 7, you know the songs, you look up whatever's happening and you talk about it. But it's that unpredictability of live sport. Like, there is nothing like it. And I just think, look, if you love football, you just love football. You can't really explain it that much. It's just a passion for it, isn't it? You know, when I think of like, oh my God, I love it so much, it's like the big moments I think about. Like I was so lucky that I got to present on Sky Sports News the day of the World Cup final.
Yeah.
And like we thought it was going to be England. And when we thought it was going to be England, I was like, I don't think I can work it, because like obviously that massive England fan, also a massive Wales fan, because I'm going to say I'm half and half. Is that allowed? Can I do that? And you know, I think sometimes when you're such a fan, you're like, oh wow, like I don't know if I can work this because I love it so much. And that's the only situation I've been like that. But you know, when you just love it. It's so hard to describe, isn't it? When someone asks you about it, you're probably the same. But yeah, it's just such buzz. And yeah, talking about it now, I miss it so much at the moment.
Do you think that, because I'm always impressed with people who work in football media, because you know, it's such a hard industry to get into, and it's hard because you've always got to be on the ball, no pun intended, with you when you're doing your live match reports and reporting back to Jeff live in the studio. You know, you've always got to think about what you're going to say. Have you ever found any challenges with that? I mean, and how did you overcome them, if you found any challenges?
So before I did my first Envisions, my husband would play FIFA, or we'd play FIFA together.
Yeah.
And I talked through the goal that just happened.
Right.
So that was how I practiced for being Envision. And, you know, I think because I've done radio for so many years, probably 8 years by the time I got on screen, I sort of had that a bit more confidence in how to speak. Like I knew how I would deliver things, because everyone's different. I think it's just really important that you just try and be yourself. Don't try and be like anyone else. But in terms of like difficulties with it, the difficulty is when I'm talking to Jeff and something happens behind you, because you don't always have, like, if you have a monitor, it's like this big. It's not very big at all, like that.
That's really interesting, because I thought you had massive TV screens that you could watch.
No, you do. In the Premier League, you do. So if you do a Premier League game, you often do have one. If you have like an amazing cameraman, sometimes they literally bring like a 14-inch telly and give you a monitor, which is. But sometimes cameramen don't have them, or sometimes if it's a League 1 or League 2 ground, you definitely don't have them because there's not the wires to get the feedback to you. So you can be watching and then you see something behind you and you're like, it's just best to be honest, because everyone can see that you've been talking to Jeff. It's not like you haven't been paying attention. And I think that's the thing. You just have to pay attention. You can't take your eyes off the game. You can't be on your phone or anything like that. Because if you take your eye off it for 1 second, it's only ever, I think it's happened once to me. And it was when I was in a Coventry game a few years ago. And they were playing Portsmouth. And it was just absolutely teeming it down. And the rain was coming into the gantry. So I literally went like this and tucked my scarf in, and they scored. And I was like, oh. But like I see like the ball was at the player's feet, and I thought, oh, he's 40 yards out, and I thought, okay, and I looked up and he scored, and I was like, I'm sure that was a long range effort, and luckily it was. But that's the only time like that's happened, and it's again that's a lesson. You just don't take your eyes off it, and I think perhaps the hardest thing is just staying completely focused and not like looking around or anything and get distracted. Because when you go as a fan, like you can talk to your mate or whatever, can't you? But personally, I just sit and watch the game.
Because I think at the moment with the lockdown, there's a big trend at the moment of doing the Chris Kamara and Jeff Stelling one where Jeff went to
Oh yeah.
and he was looking over his shoulder. That's going around a bit at the moment. So it's quite interesting you say about looking over your shoulder. What's it like to kind of work with the likes of Jeff Stelling and people like Chris Kamara and everybody around the Sky team, you know, the production team, the camera team, the presenters? Is it such a great place to work?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, I'm remote most of the time, but since being a presenter like on Sky Sports News, I've been in the building a lot more, which is in London, and just got to know them even more, really, just because you see them around. But I knew Jeff a little bit anyway, because I did one of his walks with him, and I knew the production team from just going in a few times. Because when I first started, I was like, oh, do you mind if I come in for a day so I can see your end of it? Because it can help me make more sense of what's going on. So I went in one Saturday and saw behind the scenes, and I'll tell you what, like, they are an amazing production team. That like, there's, as you know, so much happening. The producer has to be so on it. Our producer, who'd been there, I don't want to say how long, I want to say maybe 20 years, but he left last year, and he was absolutely amazing. And the new producer has been brilliant. Obviously, I haven't worked with him as much because I've been off on maternity, but both of them have done such brilliant jobs because it's such a hard job, because they make the call where you go next. So There's been a goal, like Jeff can say, there's been a goal, and we try and, you know, bring it to you as quickly as possible. And it's the producer's call to get there as quickly as possible. So it's an incredible operation. But yeah, I mean, all the behind the scenes stuff genuinely is so nice. It's the nicest team I've ever worked on by a long mile. And Jeff is as nice as he seems on TV. I used to see Cammy a lot on a Sunday morning, because what people don't realise about Cammy is he works incredibly hard, and he's very, very clever. Because I used to go down to sunrise. So I get in about 4 a.m. When I got in at 4 a.m, Cammy had already been there for an hour for goals on Sunday in the edit suite, going through the goals, ready to talk about them at like 9, 10 o'clock with Ben Shepherd. And yeah, we'd always have a chat. And again, what you see is what you get. He's a lovely, lovely man. So I would say Soccer Saturday is one of the most genuine things I've ever worked on. And the Christmas parties are a lot of fun as well. I can't say any more about the Christmas parties.
You work in the news studio sometimes, obviously doing like the transfer news live on the Sky Sports News Gaia channel and everything like that. Is that different, obviously, to the gantry? How does working in a live newsroom compare to being on top of a gantry reporting at a game like Plymouth Argyle or whoever?
Yeah, it's massively different. It's a lot warmer most of the time. But yeah, so I started presenting on Sky Sports News a few years ago. And before that, I was doing this. So I did sports bulletins on Sky News, then went on to Sky Sports News on the main channel. And it's massively different. Like, I do really, really enjoy it, though, because you're part of a big team. So the newsroom, you've got the desk in the middle, and the team is literally around you. And it's such a big team because it compromises from producers to reporters to floor managers, cameraman, sound people. And it takes a bit of getting used to, because you're in the middle of this newsroom reading out the stories, and everyone can hear you. And it's like, oh, okay, like you feel quite exposed, and you're like, what if people think I'm rubbish to start with? But you just have to have that confidence. And whereas on the gantry, like, you're high up and you're away from people usually, and it's just you and the cameraman, and there's no one really around you that can hear what you're saying. So I just feel like when I do that I'm talking to Jeff, because like he obviously does the throw, and it's quite personal the way he talks to you. Whereas when you're in the newsroom, I think you are more aware that you're on the telly. Does that make sense? And obviously you dress a lot smarter and things. I don't think presenters get enough credit, though, on Sky Sports News, because everyone's like, oh, they just read an auto cue. But that's not it at all, because there's an auto cue for certain stories. But when something breaks, or if it's Sunday or a Super Sunday and you're covering 3 Premier League games, 2 from Scotland, and then maybe a random one that's on in League One, you've got to have all your team news, because you're updating that. No one's telling you what's going on. And then, like, behind the cameras is all the monitors of the games. So you have to be really switched on. And then when news breaks, you know, during the transfer window, or if you're doing transfer news, you have to know what you're talking about. And you have to be able to grab bits of information from a club statement very, very quickly. So I don't think the presenters on Sky Sports News get enough credit, because they work incredibly hard and they have to be right on it, and so does the team with them. So, and I don't know about you, like I've watched a little bit over the last few weeks, and they're doing an amazing job to keep it going, really. Stripped down. So
because there's hardly anything to talk about. I imagine it's such a difficult job to keep. I suppose news workers and presenters are classed as kind of key workers at the moment, aren't they, of going in?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think all the presenters are classed as key workers, and I think it's nice for people to have it on maybe as a distraction from if they want an escape of what's going on. And I think there's been some fun stuff on there, and they're trying to make the most of it. So I think they're doing a really good job. Yeah.
I think with presenters, to have that knowledge of football and to plan for it as well when you go, for example, and do the games, or when you're live in the news studio, I'm always interested to see how the behind the scenes works of, for example, a news reporter planning what they're going to say on camera. Because for me, I'll plan for when I do Forest things and podcasts and video things like this. How do you plan, Michelle? Do you kind of like research notes? Do you research stats? Give us an inkling on how you kind of plan for the games on Saturday.
So we get sent us like a very basic stat pack. I didn't used to get sent it, and then I got put on the email list. I was like, yes. And but even without that, I still do the same. With or without, I do the same thing, because there's a guy called Trevor who's the stats guy, and he's amazing, and he helps Jeff with a lot of the stats in his ear. Jeff has like 4 people in his ear. It's amazing, and he will send so there'll be like a half a sheet of A4 in your game. So have a little look at that, and then I'll basically like Google that team and see what the local news has been for the week, because the local news websites usually have some really good stuff. And so say if you're doing a Cardiff game, I'll go on Wales Online and I'll see like what the news is that week. If I need a bit more detail on something, I'll either like message the local reporter, or I'll just speak to them in the press room when I get there. And then I try and pull out things like top goal scorer. So I'll have my team sheet, and I'll write down like the top goal scorer, how many goals they've scored, just next to their name and things like that when the team sheet comes out. So just little things like that. And it actually, when I was going to come back after maternity, which hopefully I will in the end, it was actually going to be quite hard to get my head around. I knew what was happening, but when you're engrossed in it week in, week out, you know who's going for promotion, you know who's having a rubbish run, you know which managers are under pressure. So I think when you're in that environment week in, week out, it's not so hard because you're always on top of it. But when you've been away for a while, you do need to do like your homework. But whereas you're almost ticking over each week, if not, aren't you? Because you know what's going on. So that's the way I work.
Definitely. We keep talking about gantries. Here's a question for you. What's the scariest gantry in football? Because, you know, the one at Forest, I've never been up there. And that's because I'm under I think you've got to be over 18 because of the health and safety. Because it is apparently, I don't know if because you've done Forest games, because obviously we've spoke. How is the Forest gantry, and how are other gantries around England? What's the scariest one, would you say, in football?
Do you know what? Forest is quite scary. And I went up there when I was pregnant. So, so like a Forest, like it's these steep steps. It's like this, but they're steps. It's not a ladder. And then when you go up there, like I've done a few Instagram videos. It's like, I don't know, you probably won't remember this. This makes me sound old, but there's this program called Fun House where I used to run around like this house and like dodge obstacles and look for things. And there's beams like this. They're like they alternate, and you have to duck under the beams because like the height is like here. Mm-hmm. So you have to go under the beams and then you come out the other end on the gantry, but it's like really narrow. So Forest is one of the most scary, definitely. And I don't like heights. So that's not a fun one, but probably I'd say the worst to get up to is Bristol Rovers, because you have to go for a roof. I know there's worse, I just haven't been to them, but you have to go up through the roof and open like a hatch, and usually it's open for you, but if it's not, you have to like sort of punch it through. And when I was like 8 months pregnant, I was up there, and the stadium safety officer came up to me and he's like, "You should be up there." I'm like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" Like, it's my job. He's like, "Oh, aren't you worried about going up the ladder?" I was like, "Well, it's not great, but you know, I'm fairly confident. It's like, you know, 7 or 8 rungs. I'm fine." Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, but the problem is if you gave birth up there, if you started giving birth, you couldn't get back down." I was like, "That is a very good point." So they moved me like to the director's suite the next game, and yeah, that's where I did the next game, which is great. So I'd say Bristol Rovers is one of them. It's hard to think because you go to so many. Exeter isn't great because you have to go up a ladder and it's like a plank of wood, mm-hmm. and it's up on some scaffolding. but they are improving, but there's still a fewer ladders, like Exeter and Birmingham City. The ladder gets taken up and you can't get down until half time. So, yeah, if you've got an emergency or anything, you're stuck. But they're usually okay nowadays. And I actually quite like them when you're near the press box, because if not, you're off on the opposite ground to the press box, which is a bit annoying when you try and do team news. So you've got your team news that comes in at 7:15, and you're on air at 7 to do the hit on Sky Sports News before Soccer Special. So like at Forest, say, like you'd be down there trying to get it, and you have to leg it up and duck and dive your way to the camera. So that's always a bit tricky. And the production team are like, "Are you ready to go at 7?" I'm like, "Yeah, if I'm Usain Bolt, that's not a problem." But
what's your favourite ground in football that you've been to, Michelle? With Sky Sports or without, as just a general football fan?
Either Villa Park. I just think it's like one of the best old grounds, and I love the crowds right on top of you. And for atmosphere, probably Elland Road. Like, it's just the noisiest I've ever been to. It's insane. So I mean,
I've been in the away end with Forest fans at Elland Road, and that's pretty noisy. It's pretty intimidating. If you have never been to a away game before, don't go to Elland Road. As you
don't know. But that is the most intimidating, and that's the right word, yeah.
What's your favourite ever game you've covered? Could it be Villa 5, Forest 5?
Oh, God, yeah. That night was insane. There's two. There's Exeter v Yeovil, when it was 3-0 to Yeovil Town in the 88th minute. Yeah. And in the 91st minute, it was 3-3. Yeah. That was mad. That was probably like the best little few minutes. But yeah, in terms of game, it's got to be Villa Forest, because I mean, there were disallowed goals in that game, weren't there? Like, it was absolutely mad. And you'd think like, okay, it's settling down a bit now, and there'd just be another flurry of goals. And every time Jules came to me, it was just like, yeah, there's another goal. Like, it was just absolutely mad. And you'd think, like, was it 5-4 to Villa at one point, and they didn't see it through at home? Yeah. I mean, I feel bad. I can't remember the exact details now, because it was about a year and a half ago, wasn't it? Was it about a year and a half ago? Was it 2.5 years ago?
Yeah, I think it. I mean, I'm not too sure. I can remember seeing it on social media. But the interesting thing was, like you just said, Villa were 5-4, and then Lewis Grabban scored in like the last minute to rescue.
I know. It honestly, like, the most ridiculous game I've ever covered. So good.
I didn't go to that game because my dad was away with work and everything. It was me and my mum who watched it on the TV. And, I was just like, what on earth is going on? And my dad was in a work meeting, so I kept texting him, like, something's happened. And there must have been 30 texts to him, because there was, different things happening. It was just such a crazy game.
Yeah, it was definitely the best. And I had a big smile on my face all the way through it, because it's just one of those games that is like a once in a 20 season game. Yeah, it was fantastic. I don't know if I'll ever do a game like that again. I hope I do, but it was just a brilliant night, really good fun.
And finally, Michelle, do you have much involvement with women's football? If not, you see it around or everything like that. You must be impressed with how that's come on in the last few years. It's such important that the women's game progresses, and I think that must be nice to see from a women football reporter's view.
Yeah, so I started playing football when I was like 3 or 4, and then I had to move to the girls' team, I think, when I was 11. Excuse me. And at that point, like, girls just didn't play football. I mean, I'm only 30. I'm not that old. So it's been amazing to sort of just watch the rise in the last few years. I played up to like quite a good standard. Like, I played up to the Premier League, which is like the equivalent now of, well, all the leagues have changed system again now, but it'd be like the equivalent of like Men's League One at that point. But they've all changed tier now. Fantastic. And yeah, it was amazing. And like, I was lucky enough to play with some girls that play for Wales. They still play for Wales. And their setup, like, through the last sort of 5 years, has massively improved. And England, you can see, have gone from strength to strength. Maybe not so much in the last year or so, but just watching the progress. But what's really important is people invest. And I think it got to like a plateau about 3-4 years ago, and it's sort of been going along like that. But now they've changed the way the Women's Super League is and things. I'm hoping, they can have more full-time players, because you can't have the situation which they had, which was you had like Manchester City all full-time and on, for women's football, decent money. And then you've got Yeovil Town, who were at the bottom of the league at that point, who had players working jobs and then going to train 4 times a week. And they're playing each other on a Sunday. And you're like, this is mad. This is like Liverpool playing like someone in the National League, playing a team that was part-time. So they've still got a long way to go, but it's in a much better place than it was, and it's getting a lot more attention than it was, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, I kind of work. I'm working at the BBC at the moment with a kind of a girl freestyler, and the level of skill, she's just absolutely fantastic, and it just shows that it's so important. And of course, I think it was it the FA Cup final that was broadcasted on TV? Was it last year? And it reached a record amount of views, and it's just so brilliant to see as well. I've done Forest women's game, and I think that Forest and the Forest women work together now. It's really close. There's such a good relationship. And that's how it should be overall, really.
Yeah, we played. I've got to say, this is going to sound awful, so please don't think anything less of me. But one of my last games I played for Cardiff, when I played for Cardiff City, was against Forest, and I scored a hat trick, so that was nice. Sorry, but that's one of my strongest memories of playing at a decent level before sort of having Zach. And it was just a beautiful spring day like it is today, and bless them, they'd travelled all the way down from Forest, and I think we thrashed them 5-1. So, but yeah, it's going from strength to strength. There's still a big gap between the Super League and the top leagues too. Even though it's like a league or two below, there's a big gap. But it's going to take time. But I really hope everything that's happening now as well doesn't affect that too much, because I think they're going to have to move the Euros next year and things, so they're not overlapping with the men.
Yeah,
we'll have to see.
I just think it's so uncertain at the moment. We will have to see. But Michelle, thank you so much for coming on today. Much appreciated. Stay safe as well.
Thank you very much.
And of course, everybody follow Michelle on social media to see what she's up to during lockdown. And fingers crossed, see you back on the TV screens sometime soon.
Brilliant. Hopefully see you at Forest soon, Max. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. If you have enjoyed episode 1 of Lockdown with Max, remember to drop it a like, share and subscribe. And I'll see you next time on Lockdown with Max.